Hello and welcome back to another video on my channel. So the international break is finally here. We're going to see our respective nations, countries return to action, whether that be through the AFCON qualifiers or international friendlies or World Cup playoffs or both or whatever. And it all kicks off on the 1st of June. But today we're going to be talking about a game that actually takes place on the evening of the 1st of June. Well, technically it's actually on the 2nd of June, because that's where we are now. We're outside the TQL Stadium in Cincinnati because USA are taking on Morocco in an international friendly. It's more of a World Cup warm-up match. That's because the Americans have to play Iran and the Moroccans have to play Canada. So both teams in this game are sort of using this fixture as a warm-up for the World Cup group stages. But of course we'll be focusing on the Moroccan side of things as we see Halal go to the World Cup for just the second time in his career, despite qualifying for 4 different World Cups. The only time he went to a World Cup, of course, was with Algeria, a fellow North African nation. This game's importance for Morocco because this will be a key indicator of whether or not they beat Canada, because they're going to have to beat Canada if they want any chance of making it to the last 16. They're going to have to beat the Canadians, and the Americans are probably a better side than Canada in terms of player for player, but both teams are not at full strength for this game. Of course, Morocco don't have Hakim Ziyech, although it's not really making a difference because Ziyech isn't going to go to the World Cup either. Even though Mazraoui has come back, I don't think Mazraoui is going to be fully fit to play the game against USA. But looking at that Moroccan team, are they technically good enough to get a result? Are the players, we know how good Hakimi is, but are the likes of, Tissadali and Unahi and Sofiane Amrabat and these sorts of guys, Boufal, are they good enough to get a result? Nonetheless, I do think the Moroccans will beat the Canadians, but I'm interested to see more how the Moroccans play rather than what result they get, because ultimately they could win this game 3-4-0, but it wouldn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things in terms of getting points at the World Cup. And it's more to see how North Africa gets on against the CONCACAF region, because Morocco will be looking at that Canada fixture, and even though I think it is their last group game, they'll be thinking we have to beat Canada because we're going to have to play Belgium and Croatia and get something against both of them probably to stand a chance of going through to the last 16. But if they do lose to the Americans, which could happen, you look at the likes of Pulisic at Chelsea, you've got Tyler Adams, you've got some good players, Stefan in goal, Aronson, who's just gone to Leeds, and Timothy Weah, I think the son of George Weah. So they've got some okay players. I remember when Algeria played the Americans at the World Cup, we lost in the last second, Jabor hit the bar, but it was just basically Tim Howard and Landon Donovan. I think that was their only 2 good players during that generation, and Clint Dempsey as well. But this American team's better. They've got a lot of players playing in Europe now. They've got Yunus Musa at Valencia as well. They've got a lot of players that have sort of got foreign heritage signed up to the United States football team. So it'll be interesting to see how they do. I think they got smacked by Costa Rica recently, but they had already qualified for the World Cup. Whereas Morocco, it's hard to judge them because they've pretty much played every single game at home. Even Wydad Casablanca won the CAF Champions League at home. We saw them go away to Congo, nearly lost that game. So interesting to see how Morocco do, not just on the road, but across the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, because this game's going to kick off in the UK at midnight on the night of June the 1st, on the morning of the 2nd of June. So if you're in this side of the world, even if you're in Morocco, you're going to have to stay up quite late to watch it. But I'm sure the Moroccans living abroad will be making a great noise in the Cincinnati Stadium. It's quite a new stadium as well, state-of-the-art facilities, and there's a lot of Moroccans living in the US, and I'm sure their head Halal is not going to want to disappoint those fans. But having said that, I still think the game will be a draw. I think if America beats Morocco, I'll be disappointed because I expect North African teams to be doing better than losing to the US with respect to the Americans. Although America, looking at their group for the World Cup, will be looking at Iran, looking at Scotland, Wales, Ukraine, and thinking they've actually got a decent chance of advancing to the knockout stages, whereas the Moroccans have got to look at Belgium, got to look at Croatia, and they're basically almost out before a ball's even been kicked. So I think if Morocco go to America, get a 1-1 because they're playing away, it's not a neutral location, if they get a draw, it'll be a very respectable result. But the key thing for Vahed will be A, the performance, and B, looking at the players he wants to take in his 23-man squad and looking at players he might potentially leave out. Because, of course, there's players that are not in this squad for Morocco that I'm sure might make an appearance because the season's going to kick-start again in August, September, and then that form might drastically change. For example, Ait-Nouri, the lad at Barcelona, earlier on this season was playing quite regularly. Didn't go to AFCON because he was starting for Barca. Now they've signed the likes of, Aubameyang and Ferran Torres and all those sorts of guys. Ait-Nouri's been almost pushed back to the B team again. You've got players like Yassine Bounou. Although I saw him do poorly against my team, West Ham, he actually had quite a good season in La Liga and qualified for the Champions League again. Roman Saï started the season with Wolves very well, but then they completely dropped off in the second half of the season. And we've got the likes of Mazraoui going to Bayern. How is he going to kick-start? Is he going to be on the bench for them, or is he going to be starting week in, week out in the Bundesliga and in the UEFA Champions League? So it'll be really interesting to see how this game pans out. America will try and win it. America will be disappointed if they don't win it at home. Morocco playing away will be a good test for them. It's a good idea by Vahed. Of course, they'll be going to Qatar for the actual tournament, which is also going to be away from Morocco for once in their lives. But I think it'll be a good game. If Pulisic plays, I think he'll have a big say in the game. And hopefully it'll be a good performance between the two sides. You've got Nayef Aguerd at the back looking to go to West Ham. You've got Dari. What a performance. I don't even think Dari is there. The guy who was playing in the CAF Champions League final, dealt with Percy Tau very, very well. But yeah, Morocco will be expected to sort of, there's a lot of people talking about them off the pitch. They're going to be wanting people to talk about them on the pitch. And the only way to do that is to go to Cincinnati and get a result. Because trust me, if it finishes USA 0, Morocco 2, suddenly people are going to be like, okay, they're all right. The Croatians are going to be like, we're going to have our work cut out. But I still think when you look at Sofia Amrabat in that middle of the park, and you compare the players Croatia have in their midfield like Modric and Kovacic, right? Like, come on now. Like, they just got to the World Cup final for a reason, despite having a small population. But they're at the World Cup. They're going to play their warm-up games. Of course, they don't have to play Zimbabwe now because they've been kicked out of AFCON. So they're going to have the opportunity to perhaps play a couple of friendlies in September where a lot of nations aren't going to be able to do that, which is an advantage for Morocco. But well, the European teams are going to be having Nations League games. So are Morocco just going to end up playing someone like Honduras or Jamaica to test for Canada again? Well, ultimately, if you're playing Belgium, you kind of want to play Holland. And if you're playing Croatia, you kind of want to play something like Czech Republic or something. So let's see what the Moroccans do. I remember when Algeria, of course, qualified for the World Cup. I mentioned Algeria because it was Vahid Halilhodžić managing them at the time. He took the squad to Switzerland and played Armenia, played Romania, and we played a third fixture as well in preparation for the tournament. So he knows what he's doing in terms of warm-up games. They're not playing America for a coincidence. They're willing to travel across the Atlantic. It's going to be Tajin against Big Macs, and we'll see what comes out on top. Hopefully it'll be the Tajin, because Big Macs aren't good for you. But anyway, let's see what happens in this game. What are your score predictions for the Americans against the Moroccans? I think Morocco need to get a result here. I think they do. If they lose the game to America, Canada are going to get excited. And Canada have got some decent players. They're not a big name. They've got Alphonso Davies and players like that, and Jonathan David. They're no mucks. And these players, particularly with the pace they have, something that Morocco doesn't have in their team. Well, Hakimi will probably be good in the fullback areas with Hakimi and Mazraoui to deal with David and Davies, because I'm sure Davies won't actually play a left back. I'm sure he'll play attacking mid, left wing, right wing, or whatever. But they need to put in a good show here, Morocco, because they don't want to be seen as a team going to the World Cup to make up the numbers. They want to be seen as a team going to the World Cup to compete. And if they go to America and get battered 4-0, it's not going to look good, and it's also not going to bode well for Vahid Halilhodžić's future. Plus, they've got to come back to play Liberia and the South Africans after they've played America. But both those games, no surprise, are going to be in Morocco. But anyway, what are your score predictions for America against Morocco in the comments down below? Thanks for watching, subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time.